Welcome back everyone, Christine here with Total War Warhammer 3, playing as Malakai McKeeson on Legendary, difficulty very hard, AI stats modifier, AI aggression set to maximum. So I've taken out Astrogoth, but now I do have several problems, starting with Azag and ending with Grimgor. And that is going to be fairly tricky to deal with, those two, because I only really have two armies right here. I do have the ability of recruiting a third, and I'm certainly earning a lot of money in this campaign at this stage, in large part because I've gotten the Deeps building, or I'm starting to get the Deeps building, so my income per one of these structures is increasing by 5% faction-wide. And I have at least two of these buildings, gonna get more of them. More of these structures, the more I get, obviously, the better my income will be. But then we have another problem, which is Prince Sigvald the Magnificent. And I can't exactly rely on my allies to do my work for me. So that's going to be an interesting situation to be tackling that right there. But I think I'm going to just start over here by getting that confederation done with Zufbar. Right here. So yeah, just get that confederation done with Zufbar, and then we can see what can be done in this situation. So after confederating Zufbar, I kind of expected a big throwdown between myself and Azazel, and then Elspeth just wiped him out. Instead, what I ended up having to fight was Sigvald, who decided to invade Norska. I'm not entirely certain about the AI decision-making in this process. Like, you have Malice Darkblade with 4 full stacks bearing down on you, and you decide to invade Norska. I mean, to be fair, Sigvald was going to hold back Malice Darkblade, but it was not necessarily clear at this stage. So he sends his principal army in the middle of Norska against me. Now, my main force in Norska was busily dealing with Wolfric, so I just did a bunch of emergency recruitment. Got a hero, got a rune lord, got some grudge seller units, and I did have a fairly powerful garrisons over here, though wolves apparently don't exist in Norska. I mean, maybe that will change with Tides of Torment, but I did have certain advantages. Beyond the fact that I did have those grudge seller units, so slayers, longbeards, hammers, which are quite capable of holding their own in quite a few ways, I also had some allied units from Kislev due to one of the Kislev factions building an outpost on this settlement, thankful for that. And then on top of that, I could summon gyrocopters to damage Sigvald's Hell Cannon, but I could also summon miners to deal with Sigvald's Hell Cannon. And the reason I could summon miners is I had built one of the deep structures that does allow you to summon 2 units of miners or blasting charges that have an infinite duration. So while Sigvald's force was marching directly into my corner camp force, I was able to take down his Hell Cannon. And believe it or not, if I had not done so, I would have flat out lost the battle. Because a Hell Cannon that's just continuously firing on your forces is going to do a tremendous amount of damage. Now, don't get me wrong, fighting Sigvald the Magnificent was still a fairly tricky affair. He did have Chosen, he did have Chaos Warriors with halberds, he did have a bunch of strong units. But the problem is with Slaanesh in general. Slaanesh is really good at flanking maneuvers, but what Slaanesh is not great at is breaking an entrenched enemy position. Chosen of Slaanesh and Chaos Warriors of Slaanesh, they have the durability, but they're not going to have the damage dealing potential. Like, if he had brought a bunch of Chaos Warriors with great weapons, generic ones, he probably would have won this, but he didn't. And so I was really able to just defeat him on one side or another. I was not able to kill Sigvald, mind you. That's a very different discussion altogether, but I was just able to hold the line with my Dwarf Warriors, regular units, the garrison units, while my Grudge Seller units were patching up any holes that were opened in my formation, holding the line until I could just deal with one of the enemy flanks where Sigvald wasn't, and then flank around and kill him. And that was the first real battle of this particular episode. Besides that, not necessarily a whole lot of interesting stuff ended up happening. I mean, Grombrindal went on a couple of sieges to deal with Kolic. And I gotta say, like, sieges, yeah, they're not a really fun experience with the gyrocopter army. Chances are you're not going to lose a siege like this. But that doesn't mean it's fun spending 20, 30 minutes just bombarding the enemy, because you do have limits as to how far you're capable of going, and the pathfinding really will end up hurting you quite a bit. But yeah, just dealt with Kolic, sold that territory to Boris, and I was able to secure victory over there in the north. That still left Grimgor, as well as a couple of other people, but all the same, that problem was resolved. Over there. I also got Forgrim in the process, so I'm running around Malakai, Grombrindal, and Forgrim in this campaign. Like, I'm not gonna confederate Ungrim or Forik until much later on. I think I'm gonna leave Forik for last. And Ungrim second last, because I kind of want Ungrim's AI to actually build a bunch of the territory that he should have actually conquered from Azag before he got obliterated over here in this campaign situation. Now after that, it was time to deal with the vampire adventure, the Gyrobomber adventure. Though, funnily enough, I didn't have any Gyrobombers in Malakai's army. I did, however, have a couple of Thunder Barges. And in fact, I'm actually going to do one thing in this campaign that I've never done before. I'm going to recruit a Thunder Barge purely just to complete the objective. I think I've only recruited a Thunder Barge once before, besides the ones that you get for free. And the only reason I did so was to complete Malakai's adventures. That's it. Like, I don't think it's worth the cost. I would much prefer many other units. I mean, there's value in a Thunder Barge. There's also downsides, of course, in a Thunder Barge situation. But yeah, this battle against the vampires, pretty damn easy. Just a bunch of people running through a corridor where they're getting annihilated by artillery and flying units. Yeah, not really that difficult to deal with. Annoyingly, with the vampire objective, the vampire adventure, there's 2 rogue armies of the vampires, but they respawn unless you kill them quickly, one after another, so that was a bit annoying. Kept one of my armies occupied. But regardless, then my army that had dealt with Wulfric invaded Sigvald. Now, I was not going to take too much territory over here. That comes later when I'm ready to annihilate Malekith. But rather, I just wanted to take the Fortress of the Damned, reestablish an alliance with Malice Darkblade, because I had declared war on a faction and Malice decided not to join in. Yeah, it's kind of annoying that you can't choose which of your allies you're asking to join your war, because like, either you ask everyone or you ask no one. And then I invaded Zarnagrund with just one army under Grombrindal. An army that had, and that fun fact about Grombrindal, I got a lightning strike, so I was only dealing with one army at the time. Though, truth be told, it might have been better had I just picked a fight with everything in Zarnagrund, like the 2 full stacks of forces, the garrison, instead of what would come later, because I then had to lay siege to Zarnagrund. And I'm going to say it outright, laying siege to Zarnagrund is not a fun experience. It's not difficult. I mean, there are hell cannons, there's a bunch of units in the garrison, they're practically unbreakable, you gotta kill a lot of these units, but not what I'd consider difficult. Like, I could have probably just continued the siege and they would have come out to play and get obliterated, and might have actually been an easier battle had I done so. But I was able to take Zarnagrund, secure it as a capital. That means that all I have to deal with in order to deal with the legendary grudge over here in this location against the Chaos Dwarves is fight Grimgor. Grimgor, who's killed Greasus marching and has survived all of, well, Xiao Ming marching on his ass. That is going to be a scary proposition. Also, I need to find somehow to be able, the forces necessary to be able to deal with the vampire grudge, specifically the one in the Silver Pinnacle. That does require multiple forces, and I was also marching on Skarsnik at this stage to liberate Karazak. Meanwhile, the one who had taken Karazak was actually Scrag, who I had a non-aggression pact with. So yeah, that's a bit of a fun experience, because I kind of don't want to fight Scrag, like just a waste of my time, but he does actually hold a lot of the territory over here in the Dwarven lands. I guess he was, because he's been fighting Gorbad, kind of winning. Age of Reckoning proving to be a bit of an issue, but all the same, just, yeah, lots of sieges, lots of minor settlements, and not necessarily a whole lot of armies that can really stand in my path at this point. Though that is going to change very, very soon. And with all those situations resolved, of course, Tretch declared war on me. Though, in this case, I think he's going to regret it. This is near the Demon Stump. I force march Grumbrindle, and I'm not really concerned about free armies of Tretch. What is he gonna do? Throw pebbles at my gyrocopters? Let me tell you, after going against Zarnagrun's formidable garrison with gyrocopters, this means nothing. At worst, the Plague Claws will do some damage. But that's all for now. Questine signing out. Stay tuned for more.